Now we will going to learn about the type of chemical reactions. Already we know about the chemical reactions. Now what are the types of chemical reactions are there? We will going to learn about the chemical reactions. The first one, combination reaction. Second one, decomposition reaction. Then third, displacement reaction. The fourth one, double displacement reaction. The next one, oxidation reaction and reduction reaction. And redox reaction. These are the chemical reactions you are going to learn. The two or more reactants combine to form a single product is known as combination reaction. Example, calcium oxide react with water. The reaction is done in vigorously. It will produce calcium hydroxide. Is a single product that is known as slacked line. Calcium hydroxide is known as slacked line. So here two reactants, calcium oxide and water, combine to produce a single product, calcium hydroxide. So this type of reaction is known as combination reaction. The next example of combination reaction is carbon burns with oxygen. It will produce a single product known as carbon dioxide. This reaction is also an example for combination reaction. The next chemical reaction is decomposition reaction. It means the composition of the reactant will be changed into simple products. That means a single reactant breaks down to give simpler products. Example, while we heating ferrous sulfate, it will produce ferric oxide and sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide. So in this reaction, a single reactant ferrous sulfate, while we heating, the composition of the ferrous sulfate will be changed. The product is ferric oxide and sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide will be formed. When this decomposition, we will heat the reactant. This type of reaction is known as thermal decomposition. Thermal means heat. So while we heat the reactant, this type of chemical reaction is known as thermal decomposition reaction. Displacement reaction. When an element displaces another element from its compound, this reaction is known as displacement reaction. The places of a reactant removed from its compound by other reactant. Example, iron react with copper sulfate. It will produce iron sulfate and copper. In this reaction, iron displaced copper from its copper sulfate solution. This is known as displacement reaction. Double displacement reaction. In this type of chemical reaction, in which the reactant ions exchange their places to form new products. Before we learned displacement reaction, in that reaction, one reactant removed other element from its compound. Single displacement done in the displacement reaction. Here double displacement means the two reactants exchange their ions. That is known as double displacement reaction. Example, sodium sulfate react with barium chloride. It will produce barium sulfate and sodium chloride. In this reaction, sodium exchange their place from its compound sodium sulfate to produce sodium chloride, and barium combined to sulfate, it will produce barium sulfate. That is called precipitate. It means insoluble particle. So both the reactants exchange their places. This is known as double displacement reaction. The next reaction is oxidation reaction. In this oxidation reaction, gain of oxygen or loss of hydrogen in the reaction. That type of reaction is known as oxidation reaction. Example, copper react with oxygen, it will produce copper oxide. This is the example of oxidation reaction because the oxygen is added to the reactant. So, adding of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. This type of reaction is known as oxidation reaction. Removal of hydrogen is also known as oxidation reaction. Example, hydrochloric acid react with oxygen. In this reaction, the loss of hydrogen to produce chlorine and water. This is also known as oxidation reaction. Next chemical reaction is reduction reaction. In this reduction reaction, loss of oxygen or gain of hydrogen. That is opposite to the oxidation reaction. Here, the loss of oxygen or gain of hydrogen done in the reaction is known as reduction reaction. Example, copper oxide react with hydrogen, it will produce copper and water. This is the example for reduction reaction because the hydrogen is added to the reactant. So this is the reduction reaction. In this reaction, the loss of oxygen, this process also done here. Here copper oxide react with hydrogen, loss of oxygen from its copper oxide. So reduction means gain of hydrogen or loss of oxygen. This is known as reduction reaction. The next reaction is redox reaction. Redox reaction, reduction, oxidation. Both the reaction is done in one reaction. That type of reaction is known as redox reaction. Both the oxidation and the reduction reaction done in one reaction. That type of reaction is known as redox reaction. Example of redox reaction, here manganese dioxide react with hydrochloric acid, it will produce manganese chloride and water and chlorine. Here the reactant side manganese dioxide, Here the action is removal, that is known as reduction reaction. The next reactant, hydrochloric acid, here the hydrogen is removal, that is oxidation reaction. Here the both oxidation and reduction done here. This is known as redox reaction. Exothermic reaction. In this type of reaction, the heat is liberated to the surrounding. When a chemical reaction is done, it will produce a heat and liberated to the surrounding. That means excite. Exothermic means excite. Heat is evolved out to the surrounding. This is known as exothermic reaction.
Take a clean and dry beaker and add 10 ml of concentrated hydrochloric acid. To it, add 10 ml of concentrated sodium hydroxide. Care should be taken while adding sodium hydroxide in drops. Stir the mixture well with the help of thermometer. Neutralization occurs resulting in the formation of salt and water. Note the temperature again. Temperature is 45 degrees Celsius. Temperature increases as neutralization occurs. This is due to the fact that heat is liberated. We can also touch the beaker and feel the heat produced. Care should be taken while touching the beaker after the reaction. Since heat is evolved, hence it is an exothermic reaction.
Endothermic reaction. In an endothermic reaction, the heat is absorbed from the surrounding. In a chemical reaction, the heat is absorbed from the surrounding is known as endothermic reaction.
Dissolving ammonium chloride in water is an endothermic process. We'll place a small amount of water onto a wooden block. We'll place the beaker of water onto the wooden block. We will add the ammonium chloride to the beaker and stir. As the ammonium chloride dissolves, the temperature of the water decreases. It is an endothermic process. Eventually the temperature gets cold enough to solidify the water under the beaker. We will pick up the beaker and the wooden block.
The effects of oxidation reactions in our day-to-day life. First one is corrosion. Corrosion means the gradual tarnishing of metals caused by action of air, moisture and other chemical reactions on their surface. The gradual tarnishing means less brightness or change in color. The originality of the metal surface will be reduced. This is rancidity. It means when fats and oils containing food stay in open for a long time, they get oxidized and become rancid. It means their smell and taste will be changed. So to avoid oxidation, keep food in airtight container. It helps us to slow down oxidation. So what are the things we are used to reduce oxidation? That is known as antioxidants. Tenth Cbse Science Ncert syllabus, the first lesson, chemical reactions and equations. Already we acquired knowledge about chemical reaction. What is mean by chemical reaction? How to identify if chemical reaction takes place. We learned about some changes help to identify the chemical reaction takes place. Change in state, change in color, change in temperature, and also evolution of gas. These are help to identify the chemical reaction takes place. The next one is chemical equation. What is mean by chemical equation? How to write a chemical equation and what are the types of chemical equation? How to balancing a chemical equation? In the chemical equation, what are the symbols are there? The symbols are denoted by what? Already you know about it. The next one is types of chemical reactions. What are the types of chemical reactions are there? The example of the chemical reactions. This and all we learned. And finally, what are the effect of oxidation reaction in our day-to-day life? We learned. Okay. So this lesson is over. I think we all are acquired knowledge about this lesson. Thank you.